Hi, welcome to Church in 5. Today we're going to have a few reflections on Jesus and the woman who's described as being bent over, perhaps with some sort of osteo condition. And this is the gospel story from Luke 13. And we're going to, the issue of course is that Jesus heals her on the Sabbath, which causes all sorts of problems for the synagogue leader. But it gives us a great insight into how Jesus saw religion. Let's begin right at the end with the response of the crowd to Jesus' actions, because there's such a delightful, sustained cry from the crowds. They are said to, it says, the entire crowd was rejoicing at all the wonderful things that Jesus was doing. Let's just note here that the source of the crowd's joy seems to be not just the fact that Jesus healed the woman, but that there's the triumph of compassion and mercy over what we might call religious rules or heartless interpretation. The Sabbath law was and remains a really good and helpful rule. But even in Jesus' day, there was discussion, there was debate over what the Sabbath commandment meant and what constituted work, the work that we were to refrain from. There was general agreement that, of course, if someone's life was at danger, you could act in order to save that person. And as we hear in the story itself, of course, you can untie an animal and lead them to food or to water. But did that extend to healing activity? The synagogue leader thought not. Jesus, however, has a more compassionate outlook. His comments remind the synagogue leader that the Sabbath was not only about resting after work, as we hear in Genesis, the creation story, but also that the Sabbath was strongly linked with, in the Jewish scriptures, with liberation from slavery. Of course, the Ten Commandments, including the Sabbath commandment, was received after the people had been rescued from Egypt in slavery. And so this liberation idea was an essential part of the Sabbath law. And now Jesus was liberating this bent-over woman. Such an approach just makes common sense. We might say today that it passes the pub test. But religion focused on rules only doesn't always make good sense. When we are too close to just thinking about do's and don'ts, and especially when we're bereft of mercy, we end up supporting positions that ultimately hurt people. We can support policies that damage the earth, and we can convey to whole groups that they just aren't worthy. It's that sort of heartless and hurting religion that turns people away, and it gives faith such a bad attitude and reputation that many would prefer to tick the no religion box when the census asks us. I think then that part of the joy from the crowd is a relief that there is an interpretation of God's law that works with what they instinctively know about life. Jesus seems to hold together these two important givens, the sanctity of human life and the holy traditions of the scriptures. For many of us, it is a joy and a delight to find such a faith today. One that values the scriptures and the deep traditions of our faith, but that treats people with compassion and can be welcoming to all. It's a relief because perhaps we have feared that to be Christian meant that we had to subscribe to hurtful and excluding dogmas and opinions. But in Jesus, we find a welcoming, compassionate Lord who is deeply grounded in the scriptures and the traditions. This is the type of faith that we seek to prioritise at Gordon-Pymble. And far from it being a weak or mealy-mouthed sort of Christian faith, actually, I think it is the faith that Jesus himself proposed and lived out. May it be your faith too. Amen.